All righty, we are live. We got audio, we got video. Where do we got people from today? That's the real question here. Let me just straighten this up. Tell me where you guys are from. Let's see it. All right, here we go. I misspelled siege. Oops, it's all good. Who cares about that? It was early in the morning when I made this. It is good to see you all in here. Welcome in, everybody. It is episode number 154 of Calibrated with Scott. I am, of course, your host, Scott. We have a litany of information to talk about. We have a ton of updates inside of Ukraine. We're going to go over the entire map. The Russians are moving everywhere. We have a very well coordinated Ukrainian I would say Ukrainian NATO operation inside of Russia, which destroyed some of Russia's Tu-95 Bear bombers, as well as some Tu-22 M3 bombers, and potentially an AN-12 transport aircraft. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Just in general, there's a lot going on, and I'm going to just be talking a lot. So if you guys have questions, don't forget to put your questions up. I'll read them if I can. I'll look over from time to time. If you want your questions answered on air, or you just want to support me, you can always ask those questions through super chats. I see them. I answer every super chat no matter what. And guys, if you are new here, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it very much. It is the easiest way you can help me. All right, let's dig into it. We have quite a bit to talk about today. So let's see. No intro. What? I did do an intro. All right. I love this show. Thank you, brother. Chattanooga, Tennessee. Nice. Cincinnati, Ohio. Libtard, New Mexico. It's home, brother. It's home. Howdy from League City, Texas. Nice, man. Greetings from Serbia. Hello, my Serbian brother. It's late. I'm glad you all joined me. All of my Euro bros that are in here right now. Thank you for staying up late and spending your late night with me. Macedonia. Nice. 1 a.m. here, Scott. Yes, I appreciate it, brother. It's 4 o'clock somewhere. Cincinnati, Ohio. Awesome, guys. Awesome. We have a ton to talk about. First and foremost, I think I'm going to just discuss the recent Ukrainian operation. That is the most pressing news currently. The updates will come in just a few moments, but we're going to talk about this a little bit. And I have some videos that I'm going to show you, which involve the strike. So, was it yesterday morning? The days are starting to blur with work and stuff. It was either yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday morning, early in the morning, my time at least, middle day in Ukraine. The Ukrainian operation, codenamed Cobweb, took place. This involved Ukrainian saboteurs and intelligence agents inside of Russian territory, building these trailers that were then pulled by truck drivers. The truck drivers, it's not believed, were involved in these attacks. They were lackeys, and I will present my evidence for that. And these trailers were basically just cubbies with FPV drones in them. When the truck got to the location where it was instructed to drive to, the curtain dropped. These drones began to fly out of the trailer and attack the nearby Russian airbase. This happened simultaneously at 3 or 4 different air bases across Russia. I believe that there were 4 trucks in total. 2 of the trucks never made it to their objective spots. They were stopped. A truck driver got out of one and went to look in the back of it and ended up getting killed by an explosive booby trap. So that's what leads me to believe that these drivers were not involved. Anyway, the strike was very, very, very effective for what it was aiming at. The goal was to disrupt Russian bomber activity, put the Russians sort of on their back heels strategically. In terms of their strike posture, it's not going to change a whole lot just because of the numbers, and we're going to discuss that in a second. and what is required for the strikes that take place inside of Ukraine. But the overall operation was very successful. It looks like between 8 and 12 aircraft were destroyed. Included in this is 4 to 6 Tu-95 Bear bombers, so the large bombers that conduct strikes with KH-101 missiles, and additionally a few Tu-22 M3 backfire bombers, as well as an AN-12 transport aircraft were destroyed. So pretty successful for what it cost. The operation, admittedly by Ukraine, took 18 months to plan, orchestrate, and execute. So this operation was put into planning in 2023. Reportedly, Europe gave their permission for this. It is believed that some of these materials that were used for this attack were smuggled through Finland. So again, you have Western intelligence agencies assisting in these strikes inside of Russia. And then they just say that it was the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians take all the credit. On top of this, we saw strikes on the Kerch Bridge. A submersible drone hit one of the defensive reinforcements on the Kerch Bridge and detonated. It doesn't appear that it did any structural damage, although I can't tell for certain. But when the traffic was immediately resumed, so that leads me to believe that there was no structural damage, and it seems like it's kind of like a missed opportunity of some sorts with this submersible. We also saw a number of surface drones being launched at Crimea. They were taken out by Lancets and FPV drones, which is good because, just in terms of the Russian perspective, the Russians were using Su-35s for close gun runs, and they were getting shot down, and helicopters were being lost to these surface drones with, like Sidewinder missiles or AIM-9 or whatever, AIM-7. I can't remember what exactly they put on there. But now they're being handled with drones, which is how it should be. It should be drone on drone warfare. That's how it should just kind of always work. Because that's the easiest counter. It's in my opinion nowadays, FPVs or interceptor drones are the best to deal with other drones. And personally, and this is just an idea I've had, I think that a Guardian drone, like an interceptor FPV that will either take off or is constantly following you around for whatever, an assault, or if it's stationed to protect a vehicle, whenever it detects an FPV signal, that drone just flies off and intercepts it, right? So it would take 2 FPVs to get through to destroy the tank or whatever, and it would just keep everybody alive a little bit longer. That's my opinion on it. I think that's what we're going to see eventually, but that's a tangent. On top of this, the Ukrainians have also been launching Neptune anti-ship missiles, as well as converted S-200 missiles at Crimea. They shot around 6 Neptune and 1 or 2 S-200 missiles at Crimea. All of those were intercepted. The ships in the ports in the Black Sea were deployed into the Black Sea for the time of the missile strike, so that they weren't stationary, and then they moved back once that strike was over. So that's basically what's been going on. I'm going to take us over to my Twitter now, and I will show you the here we go. So here you can see one of the bombers. Actually, let me restart this. Here you can see one of the bombers. It's on fire. It was already hit by a drone. The fire is not a good sign on any aircraft. A fire is a very bad sign, so that's no good. Here you see, it looks to me like a drone dropped explosive hits this second Tu-95 here. But yeah, this was a very well orchestrated attack that worked rather well. And you can see just some of the results here. You can see large fires in different places, and then the drones flying to the base from the vehicle that they were in. So this was all done with FPV drones. Okay. All right, guys. So that's sort of the Operation Cobweb. That was the Ukrainian operation, and in my opinion, I'll talk about it now in terms of the strategy and perhaps the aims. So first and foremost, this is to derail negotiations. The United States is trying to get Ukraine to go through with the ceasefire deal, which I don't really necessarily believe fully. I think that the West just wants the ceasefire for a pause so that they can continue arming Ukraine and Ukraine continue mobilizing. The Russians aren't allowing that. And so now the objective is to just derail this negotiation and make Russia look like the bad guys. This operation does that specifically. Number one, targeting the Kerch Bridge, which is just symbolic in nature. You guys, here, let me take you guys over to my map real fast, and I will show you what the Kerch Bridge was replaced by. So here's the Kerch Bridge down here, the bridge from Russia to Crimea. This is where they try to attack regularly. They have detonated a suicide bomb on this and have destroyed a section of the road bridge. However, if we go slightly to the north here, you can see this large landmass that kind of really makes the whole Kerch Bridge thing obsolete. I mean, it's still nice to have a time reducer to get to Crimea if you need to, but say the whole bridge blows up tomorrow. Logistics don't go over that bridge as much as you would think. The logistics can go from the railroad that connects to Crimea this way, and it's much simpler that way. Honestly, it comes down from Donetsk or Rostov on the train, goes over here. Some of it definitely might go over the train bridge on the Crimean bridge, but all in all, not what they think is going to happen, or they talk about it like it's going to happen. So we saw that strike. We saw the explosion on the pylon. You can go see those on my Telegram or my Twitter, but that didn't amount to anything. And again, it's these weird symbolic strikes, these strikes that just don't add up to major success. You know, say they sink the whole Black Sea fleet. You sink the whole thing. The whole thing's gone. Every single ship in the Black Sea is at the bottom of the Black Sea. What does that change posture-wise in the Black Sea for the Russians? They still have standoff capabilities to deny any access anywhere, right? They can fire missiles at any ship in the sea. So you don't need a fleet necessarily. I mean, it might make you a little bit weaker, but it's not going to affect the war in Ukraine at all, right? The war in Ukraine is not happening in the Black Sea. And this is what I want you guys to focus on. All of these operations are targeting things that have little to no effect on the Ukrainian conflict. I mean, if we want to talk about strategic strikes, like we have the bombers that go up, the strategic bombers go up for a strike on Ukraine. We see 4 go up, sometimes 8 if it's a massive strike now, but usually it's just 4. They fire 6 to 12 cruise missiles. Those cruise missiles go and hit their targets, and that's kind of it. And we've seen maybe 3 or 4 of those in all this year, right? And in the totality of the year, we've seen maybe 4 or 5 combined missile strikes from the Russians. It's been very slow. They haven't been super aggressive. It's maybe a few more than that, but not many, right? It's negligible, especially when you're talking about 100 Iskanders a month or something like that, right? It's not even close to the damage that Garan drones, Iskanders are doing, KH-59, KH-69 missiles, right? There's a whole litany of munitions that are being used. This missile strike is such a small subsection, right? The Russians still have Kinzhals. They can still fire long-range missiles from other bomber platforms. They haven't lost any of their Tu-160s. So they still have 20 of those, and those carry more missiles. So again, the strike is fantastic, right? That's the objective. It's supposed to be a taboo target, right? The nuclear triad of Russia, which, by the way, I don't know who really counts bombers in their nuclear triad anymore. It's a very outdated thing. By the time the bombers get to location, the entire place has been reduced by submarine launched ballistic missiles and ICBMs. So, I mean, I get it. It's another ability to defend yourself. It's a strategic option, but it's not really like I would be much more concerned if Iskander firing systems started getting destroyed in Russia, right? If we started to see Iskanders explode, like the launching platforms, the factories, something like that, that would be an impactful thing on the war in Ukraine. That isn't happening. You're seeing strikes on very, very soft targets that are very, very far away from Ukraine. It's like they don't want you to look at Ukraine at all. Look here, 4,400 miles away at a Russian nuclear airbase. Oh, we got some bombers. It's cool. And Putin is horribly embarrassed. And the war goes on, right? And this is what I've told you guys time and time again. There's always this embarrassment. Oh, it's so embarrassing that this happened. Embarrassment is just like an emotional response to a stimulus. And if you let that dictate what you do based on your embarrassment, your ego, you're not going to be a winner, in my opinion. I don't think that that's the way you achieve victory in anything. So, I think that these strikes are rather meaningless, other than in the PR aspect and perhaps the derailment of negotiations. They did a bunch of damage, right? A bunch of money was a bunch of monetary damage was done. A bunch of material damage was done. These bombers cannot be replaced. I'm not trying to cope or minimize the damage that was done to the Russians here. What I am saying is that if you have 10, let's say 10 bombers get destroyed, it's a quarter of their strategic fleet, right? First off, the Tu-95 is an old bomber that's being phased out. They don't produce them anymore. It's going to be phased out eventually, right? That's part of their plan. So you're destroying something that is valuable now, but its value is becoming less and less as time goes on. On top of that, they are still capable of doing your full missile strike on Ukraine. They still have 30 other planes ready right now within the theater that can strike Ukraine, and they only ever use 4. So this is sort of what I'm talking about. Doesn't make sense. Kerch Bridge, we have the land bridge. Doesn't make sense. Black Sea Fleet, they don't do anything. They don't do anything for the Russians. They're actually, the Black Sea Fleet is just kind of a liability and an easy target for, or it's not an easy target, but a target for the Ukrainians compared to, the 6 calibers we see get launched per month or something like that. All right. I got some questions here I'm going to go through. Hello, chat, and Big Strong Bald Man. Hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. Studio Reiner. Was the drone attack beneficial to the U.S.? Do they not realize that this drone attack would be far more effective against the U.S., even for cartels, terrorists? It really sets a new precedent. It absolutely does. And this is what a lot of people came out and said directly. They said, oh, holy shit, this is going to happen to us. Because I know that if I parked a truck like this next to the airbase in my city, and I could easily have done this operation and destroyed F-35s. We have strategic aircraft at the base near where I live. I'm not saying I'm going to do that. Please don't come and get me. I have no intention of doing that. But what I'm saying is it is a soft target right there, and we have no preparation in place for that, especially in heartland America. Where that you just don't have any expectation that that's going to happen. Somebody could do some serious damage. Chinese, just say the Chinese were going to do a strike that a Pearl Harbor, I guess you could say, some sort of preventative strike before we were actually at war with them. Say the economic war gets really rough and they're like, we got to destroy a bunch of their B-2s before they can move them to Diego Garcia and it becomes a problem, or move them to Guam or Okinawa or whatever, and it becomes an issue that we're going to have to deal with closer, right? You disable half the U.S. strategic air fleet, and it's a soft target. So this is a very legitimate concern. I don't think it was beneficial in the sense that now I think if the Russians were able to assist somebody in developing this sort of technology and then using it on a U.S. base somewhere, I don't think the Russians would be that they would be kind of on board for that. So I do think it harms the U.S. in that every time you escalate, right? Every escalation, every sanction, double-edged sword. There's always a swing back on all of these things. And this is why when people are like, why isn't Putin doing X or Y, or why is he not persecuting the war in a more bloody fashion, or, why is the power still on Kiev? That's great and all, right? That's fantastic. But there are consequences to every action. There is a reaction to every action. And when the other side is actively goading you into doing stuff, You have to be very wary of that. You don't want to play their game, right? The Russians are playing their game, and it's embarrassing sometimes. And the Russians are dumb sometimes. The Russian MOD doesn't do what it's supposed to do sometimes. How long have people been on Telegram? Just nobody's on Telegram talking about how the Russians need to put up defensive structures for their bombers to park in. The United States does it. They backed out of START Treaty. Why aren't they doing it? They have tires on the back of their planes. That is old boomer MOD nonsense. None of that is going to change until the young guys that are fighting now get up into those positions. That's like the end of the Soviet. They're stubborn. It's corruption. That money goes elsewhere. That needs to be changed. So I don't necessarily think it benefits the U.S. in any way other than they learned a weakness and they might be able to exploit it later in China or something like that. That's the only thing there. Yemen's ability to take a large chunk of the U.S. conventional Navy and Air Force, take on a large, shouldn't be forgotten despite it being ignored in media. Yeah, I mean, the U.S., it's just like a Vietnam situation where you're trying to play whack-a-mole with these, not jihadists, but you know, they're the human aspect of these military branches is usually expendable, right? That's sort of the idea. You're going to be a martyr when you die. So losses aren't particularly overwhelming like they would be for the United States. Like every loss in the United States would matter. I think a fly just flew by me. But for Yemen, it's just kind of a day-to-day thing. They were starving 4 years ago or whatever, 8 years ago, and they've been bombed forever. So it's just life. It's just like Gaza. It's just life. And, you know, trying to fight that, it was just the cost ratio there was not worth it for the U.S. What the U.S. should have done is just stop what was going on in Gaza, and then they wouldn't have had to spend billions of dollars in interceptors and missiles and flew B-52s out to Diego Garcia and postured the way they did for absolutely no reason. And it really kind of was embarrassing. Again, embarrassing isn't a thing for me in geopolitics. I don't really think of that. But for the US, you have a status symbol that is now being reduced, right? Russia doesn't really have that status symbol. They kind of do. They have the Soviet like run over. But the Russian Federation has never been known as the mighty, great Russian Federation. So if they mess up, it's like, the Russians again. But when the U.S. messes up, it's like, come on, you're the hegemony. You spend 10 times more on your military than the Russians do. The Russians are beating you in Ukraine, and you can't even take out some sheep farmers or herders in Yemen. So, yes. The U.S. doesn't manufacture its goods, and it's still relying on China while we've been seeking the pager attack and the drone attack. While we've seen the pager and drone attack, the other issue is the U.S. won't report on. Yeah, no, we're just pivoting to Russia. I've explained this a lot. Pivoting to China. Sorry, I've explained this multiple times before. The U.S. is leaving the Ukraine project to Europe. They're pivoting to China, and we will. Things are going to get wild here soon because the U.S. is losing its grip on hegemony very, very quickly. This is why China should not own U.S. property. Yes, true. I don't think any country should own another country's property, hardly ever, or territory. I don't think that that's very smart. I get external investment, but I think long leases are better for that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think China should own anything. I also don't think BlackRock should own single family homes. I think that any entity over $500 billion should not be able to own single family homes. And that includes companies that are under the conglomerate of larger companies, not like, oh, we only have 450 billion and we own all these homes. And then our 6 other companies also do that. But yeah, that's not going to happen because people like a lot of money. Trump called President Putin crazy when Russia launched missiles into Kiev. What signal will Trump now send after the drone escalation in Russia? Yeah, I don't even know if that was a response, the missiles into Kiev thing. I mean, again, they didn't really target anything other than military targets. They targeted UAV construction facilities and development facilities. So again, I mean, it's just a military strike, right? They're just reducing the supply and logistics capabilities of the Ukrainians. Guys, I would not hold my breath for retaliation. I've talked about this 1,000 times. You might feel embarrassed, or Putin might feel embarrassed, or you might think it's weak or whatever, but the war is continuing. Are the Russians taking more land than ever? You're about to figure that out. I'm about to go over the map right now. Yes, they are. They are taking less losses than ever before as well. This has been confirmed by both sides through material counting. So like lost tanks and armored vehicles, especially in the Sumy region. The Russians are taking very little losses for the territory they're capturing. So the response is going to be less Ukraine. Guys, this is a existential war. You are playing a chess match. You don't just send your queen in because you're angry, right? That's not how chess works. You have to use the board to your advantage. You have to play the game, and half the game, more than half the game, is political, right? And so Putin is playing a political game, and maybe you think he's playing it too much and he's too soft or whatever, but the Russians have chose this direction, and that's the direction. That's just the reality of it. So I would not expect a large retaliation. I don't expect the Rada to get Oreshnicked or anything like that. It's not going to happen. It might, but I don't think so. I think the Russians are just going to keep doing what they're doing, and eventually they're going to occupy a lot more of Ukraine. Yemen also showed the Iron Dome's best air defense isn't effective anymore. Iron Dome doesn't intercept anything from Yemen. Iron Dome is meant for unguided projectiles. What you're referring to would be Patriot, like PAC-3 interceptors, or THAAD, or David Slingshot. The U.S. has a lot of THAAD systems in the region, but they've done pretty good. I mean, the Yemenis only fire like one missile a day, so you have multiple THAAD batteries in the region, and you have one missile firing. But every time that missile fires, they fire two interceptors up that are both more expensive than the missile they're firing at. And that's what the Yemenis are trying to do. They're trying to keep their presence known, and they're trying to expend U.S. resources. And that's why you see the U.S. Demanding that Europe increases their air defense production fivefold, is because the U.S. has just been burning through interceptors for 3 years, and they only produce like 600 PAC-3 interceptors a year. When Ukraine does one of those dumps where they fire all of their Patriots out of the battery because they think they're going to get hit, that's like literally half. If you see the two batteries going off and they both fire like 12 missiles, that's literally 25. What is that? Like 1/16 of their annual missile production. So it's kind of crazy. All right. Thank you for the questions, guys. Hey, what about Graham's bill 500% tariff threat? He's an idiot. Literally, I don't know what to tell you. That dude has no morals, no boundaries, no lines, and no spine. He just flip-flops. He was anti-Trump, and then he was kissing Trump's boot, saying we shouldn't be in Ukraine, and now he's talking about arming Ukraine and tariffing China and all this shit. It's just, yeah, he's gross. And also, I've heard a lot of stories from my friends in different areas of the country that he is a goofy party boy. Yeah, so I trust that because I don't know why they would lie about it. It came about in conversation out of nowhere. So, all right, I got to do some map updates, guys. I really appreciate your questions. I'll get back to them in just a second. Let me see. Yeah, I'll get back to those in just a second, but I'm gonna go through the map updates now because we got a lot of map updates to do. All right, we will start in the south. Let's go to the Velika Novosilka area, where we see Russian forces have pushed out from Velenipole a small bit, as well as pushed into the next defensive line outside of Zelenipole here. So the Russians are continuing to push in this area, but this entire front has sort of slowed down. There's not a huge amount of Russian pressure in this direction currently. Actually, I wanted to talk about this over in the Zaporozhye area. Above Robytny, this entire area up into Novodanilivka, like on the highway here, has been pushed into the gray zone. Ukrainians were forced to retreat out of this area, so we can expect a Russian advance in this direction in a in a short period of time, I do think. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, moving over to the Pokrovsk salient, guys. We have Russian advance here in the direction of Shevchenko-Pershi. This is, again, this important high ground that we regularly talk about. It includes these two mining facilities. Once these are captured, the Russians are going to begin a very, very intense operation to cut off Ukrainian logistics into Pokrovsk along this highway right here. This is really, really bad for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians cannot be losing territory here. And I think, from what I've seen, the reports I'm seeing, I think that the Russians have advanced much further up into the Cobweb area. So I think that this salient here and this western or eastern flank of Pokrovsk Minhrad is going to become a very, very delicate area and something that the Ukrainians are going to have to respond to. And we're going to talk about this. The Ukrainians have to respond to many fires all over the front, and you're going to see that here. So moving up, Russian forces have moved into the fortification just south of Rusyanar. They have also pushed into the village of Yablanivka here. And these advances are just kind of the entire front shifting. Remember, I'm going to bring up my little predictions here. You can see that first off, this yellow area here that I had made quite some time ago, talking about the envelopment of Toretsk, is almost complete. The Russians followed it similarly to how I had envisioned. So I will probably delete these here soon, but the Russians need to continue to move onto the high ground in this area before the situation in Konstantinivka becomes very difficult. It would also be very helpful if they pushed into the town of Stinky back here, which is a funny name for a town. And I know there's a ton of lines here, guys, and I know it's kind of confusing, but this green line was the line that I had made to represent where the Russian front line was going to be. I made this prediction in March, on March 22nd, and that is it is almost exactly where I thought it was going to be. It is getting there very quickly. So we'll go down here where we can see Russian forces have just made a general advance across the entire front line here, advancing out of Zora up towards Yablanivka and up towards this reservoir. Pretty soon the Ukrainians are going to be forced out of this defensive line here, and the Russians are already moving up behind through these fortifications as well. Remember, I kind of related it to an island hopping campaign where we see the Russians jumping from, I need to hide that comment, sorry. Hiding from, I need to hide that as well. Okay, there we go. Where the Russians are, I forgot what I was talking about. Island hopping. The Russians are island hopping from fortification to fortification up here. And the end goal, the major goal here, is to secure this fortified position on the ring road right here, as well as pushing up into the village of Mykolaiv, which is, again, not particularly far, and there's not a ton of fortifications in the Russian way that direction. As well over here, obviously the Russians need to push up into these industrial areas and then out through this fortification. Once they reach the low ground here, I think the Russians will stop and begin the siege of Pokrovsk, really putting a lot of pressure on the salient until eventually what usually happens is the Ukrainians break on the front line here. The Russians are able to enter Pokrovsk, and then the fighting in the city begins, and then it just sort of gets pushed out. That has been the pattern lately with these towns. So. All right, moving down to the Toretsk, the northern flank of Toretsk here. Russian forces have captured the village of Delivka. They have also pushed up into the village of Delivka. So yeah, two Delivkas right next to each other, two different towns. Hey, real original, guys. Figure it out. So cool. All right, moving up to Chasiv Yar. And remember, this is the entire Konstantinivka front right here, from Chasiv Yar all the way down. The whole thing is moving in, right? The Ukrainians are not able to stop the Russian advances in these areas. So, and this is over just a week. This is just over the last week. So inside of Chasiv Yar, Russian forces have advanced through the last suburban area and have almost completely captured the city. As soon as this pocket closes and the front levels out here, that will be the conclusion of the Battle of Chasiv Yar. The Battle of Chasiv Yar is almost at its end. Up here to the north, more of this high ground got captured, which is really bad for the Ukrainians because it sets up the Russians to begin moving towards Makarove and really pushing up this canal in a very dangerous manner. They have now gained access to a lot of the high ground. Here, just north of that, in Hirorivka, Russian forces have pushed out and leveled the front along said canal. All right, moving up to the Liman front. So we've had movement down here in Velika Novosoka. We have movement in between Pokrovsk and Konstantinivka. We have movement along the entire Konstantinivka Chasiv Yar front. And then moving up to the Liman front, which again is another hypersensitive area where the Ukrainians should not be losing territory in the manner that they are. This is an area that, if they're not careful, will just spiral out of control very, very quickly. So here we can zoom in. We can see that the Russians have advanced north of Novomikhailivka, have advanced along the Kharkiv and Donetsk Oblast, have captured the village of Rikadoba, and have pushed over here into Kaprivka. So this is quite the significant advance. I'm actually going to take us over to my topographical map and show you guys why this advance is as significant as it is. Okay. Topographical map. It's everybody's favorite time. It's the topographical map. Yeah. Map. All right. So here is where am I? Am I north of where I'm supposed to be? Yes. Here we go. So here is Rikadukuba. I can't remember what the name of it is. Let me see. Rikaduba. So that is right here. This is the dominant high ground in the region, right? The Russians are going to move in the direction. They're now in the village of Kaprivka on the low ground. All they have to do is get up onto this high ground, and the Oskal basin ahead of them is completely cut off. So this is very bad for the Ukrainians. Again, it's bad for the northern direction. And then if we look down here to the south, if the Russians are able to push down onto this village here, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, this village here. What is the name of this village? It's so small I can't see it. Let's see. Is that, no, maybe not this one, but this, because the Russians are already kind of here. Oh, no, this town down here. Sorry, this town right here, which is Stavaki. So if the Russians are able to reach Stavaki here, they will have the dominant high ground that overlooks the city of Liman. That is very, very bad for the Ukrainians because the city of Liman is the primary logistics route into the Shibyansky forestry and the protector of the Seversk salient. So again, this is a very, very bad area to be losing, and the Russians are advancing very quick in the direction of the Oskil River over here, which once they reach, again, just onto this high ground. I'll take you back over to the map now because we're done looking at the topographical map. If the Russians are able to make it up onto this high ground right here, like Vovchansk Yar, it is over. It is over for this northern pocket. They're going to have such a difficult time holding this. The Oskal River is very wide right here. Borova is going to be pushed very hard from the north and the south. This salient right here is going to get very tight. Now, they are able to hold this salient. I think it's because Kupiansk is more developed. So this salient is a slightly different case study, but this one is much harder to cross, much harder to get supplies over if you have to ford the river or create a pontoon. And the Russians are moving quick, so it's gonna be do or die for this northern pocket in a couple weeks, I would say. And then no updates around Toretsk or Zakharin. Everybody is talking about this area, but nothing's really happening. All right, moving up to the Kupiansk section of the front. Russian forces have pushed out along the highway and have made it to the gas service station north of the city of Kupiansk itself, capturing the villages of Krindashivka and Radivka. So again, this is another large advance for the Russians in a very pivotal area of the map. Just to the north, just a small Russian advance out of Stryovka. No updates in the Kharkov area, although the Kharkov area is 94 square miles. Just remember that. Moving over to the Sumy region. Okay, guys, here is sort of the topic of today. It should not take super long, but we will cover the updates and then we'll talk about it. So Russian forces have pushed down into this sort of forested area, although there are reports of Ukrainian counterattacks, so this might be reduced in a short time. I don't know at the current moment. Different mappers are saying different things. Different sources are saying different things. So this is on hold for now. Over here, another entry has been made by Russian forces, just I guess south of Oleshina, through the forested area, just sort of popping out. Again, a massive advance here. 40.9 square miles was the advance over the last week. Russian forces were able to enter the village of Yanakivka, enter the village of Yablanivka, capture the village of Novomikhailivka, capture the village of Oleksivka, capture the village of Andrivka, captured the village of Kindatrivka, captured the village of Konstantinivka, and captured the village of Novokonstantinivka. So that's a ton of villages in the northern part of the Sumy region. It was a mouthful to go through. So I appreciate you guys tolerating that. I am going to show you guys now what I had sort of mapped out. I can't remember. This is when the Kursk pocket began to close. I made this prediction, so I'm going to pop this up, and you can see my prediction here. Russian forces have almost completed another one of my predictions. Surprise, surprise. Aiden knows what he's talking about sometimes. It's crazy, or Scott, or whatever you guys call me. Jose, Shlomo Weil. This is exactly what I talked about. The Russians are just pushing out onto this high ground where they will then sit outside of the forest, maybe enter it a little bit, I'm not sure, and look down on the Sumy region. I am going to go over to my profile now and show you guys the view from a Russian drone of the city of Sumy, which just kind of demonstrates how close in proximity the Russians are to that area. Let me see if I can find it. And I can't find it because I forgot to bookmark all this stuff when I should have, like an idiot. I'm really good at that. I'm really, really good at that. So bear with me. Here we go. Hold on. Hold your breath. It's coming. Did I pass it already? There's no way, right? Oh, yep, there it is. I passed it. I passed it, guys. My bad. That was my bad. All right, here we go. So stop sharing that. Bring this up. Bop, bop. So here is the view from a Russian Maverick drone. It can see very clearly the city of Sumy. Remember, guys, Russian strike drones are operating over Sumy. I saw a couple more strikes today. Took out some Ukrainians. They are targeting Ukrainians now, which I haven't necessarily seen as much of. So they're doing manpower casualties more than vehicle casualties. Not more necessarily, but more than they previously were. So that is what is going on there. I just thought that was kind of a nice view. All right. But with this, I'm going to take you guys over to the topographical map just so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here in the northern Sumy region. And then we will get to some questions and we can talk about some other stuff that's going on maybe. So let's zoom in here. Yeah, so here's the city of Sumy. And here is sort of the area that I outlined right down here along this river, down through this area and out over here. And that's almost what the Russians have fully captured now. Once they get to that, I don't expect a ton of movement. You might see something start over on this side, which forces Ukrainians to get pulled further over. And the Russians might try to develop onto this high ground here. but I don't think you're going to see them come down much further than this right now, unless the Ukrainian army is just so absolutely demolished in this region that they're able to move quickly and easily without major resistance, which just laying this out there, we have seen an extremely reduced number of Russian casualties in and around the Sumy region. Fighting has gone down, but that's not what I mean. I mean, just in terms of the Russians pushing out and advancing and capturing a bunch of territory compared to other areas of the front, the Russians are seeing less casualties in the Sumy region, at least in terms of vehicle losses, which they are using a lot of vehicles in this region. All right, I'm going to get to some questions now because I had some more people ask. If the U.S. thinks it can take out cartels, then we have an existential threat. The southern border seems like the largest threat for the U.S. I don't know. I don't think that's the largest threat for the U.S. But I think if you just leave cartels alone, they would rather pump drugs into the country. And so if you think drugs is the biggest issue for the U.S., then yes. But they're just businessmen, crazy, psychotic businessmen, sociopaths, but still, which businessmen aren't, which successful businessmen aren't. I don't think it's the largest threat. I think China is not a threat to us. I think we could trade to them, but we would have to give up our hegemony. So thinking from a hegemony first position, China is definitely our largest threat. They want what we got. I mean, how do you think the drone plane attack on Russia factors into Trump's hot potato game? I don't think Trump gave a shit. I think they planned it. They knew it was coming and it happened. And then they're like, oh, surprise. We didn't know. So that's what I think. We are losing $1 trillion a year due to cybercrime. My father's identity was stolen before and no solutions. We will need to bankrupt and liquidate the federal government. Empire sucks. Empire sucks, yes, but I don't think that's going to put an end to cybercrime. So I'm sorry about that happening to your father. With regards to the Sumy forest, do you think the Russians will enter the forest, or do you think they will envelop and bomb it? I don't think the Russians will enter the forest, like I said, unless the Ukrainian resistance is just so weak that they're able to move through. Forests are usually difficult to work with. They're easy to hide in. Liquidate labor, liquidate stocks, liquidate farmers, liquidate real estate. I will purge the rottenness out of our system. Yeah, that's like that accelerationist or anarchist sort of talk. Unfortunately, the world you live in depends on those existentially. So it's a great idea, but it doesn't work out the way I think you want it to. All right, guys. I am done. If you have some questions, go ahead and get some questions in. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you have not done so far. I don't know if I'm really taking questions, but if you guys just have topics that you want me to answer, go on. Scott, I know people that are living in Ukraine right now. They live there. They are living there, and their lives are totally unaffected by this. It's bizarre. When is Russia going to make things difficult? Why would they make things difficult? Again, this is the thing I'm talking about. Everybody has this formulaic way of winning a war where they think you're going to just destroy all the power, destroy all the bridges, take out the entire grid. The entire population is going to be affected. And then what? You're going to try to occupy them? You know who the biggest enemy of the Ukrainian people is right now? It's not Russia. It's not. And the Ukrainian civilians know that. They know exactly who their enemy is. There's a reason why Zelensky has a 16% approval rating. He's not popular. There's people getting kidnapped, disappearing. Families aren't getting benefits from the government when their sons and daughters go missing in action. Which there's probably hundreds of thousands of people missing in action in Ukraine. So no, that I don't follow this logic of when are the Russians going to take the gloves off? I mean, I get striking maybe decision makers, but what is Zelensky doing for Ukraine, right? The only people I would say who need to be seriously targeted are the intelligence apparatus. If you can get rid of the SBU or take it down a huge notch, that's going to be fantastic. And then if operations still continue happening at the same speed and with the same veracity, you know that the West is the one orchestrating them, and then you can very clearly point that out. So no, I don't think that making life difficult is the right option. I don't think that that is going to benefit the Russians who plan on occupying the country. I think that that is a very U.S. Western sort of mindset. We just got to fucking win. I'm so tired of watching this. I just want it to be over, and I want to win. And that's great. That's great, but then you get Iraq, right? Does Russia want Iraq on its border? No. It wants a population that is understanding that the Russians are kind of not really the bad guys. The U.S. has abandoned us. The Europeans are going to abandon us. Our government doesn't care if they kill us in droves and droves and droves. They've had multiple chances to make peace negotiations, and they turned it down. Make that government the enemy. Don't make yourself the enemy. This is exactly what the U.S. and NATO did to the average Russian citizen on the first day of this goddamn special military operation. The biggest mistake that the West made was letting its Russophobia come out so blatant and apparent. It was gross. You made every single Russian know that you hated them, that you disliked them for who they are and what they stand for. That's not a good way to win a war. That's a really good way to get an entire nation united behind a single person who you want out of power. It's retarded. So no, I don't think stepping it up a notch and just turning off the lights, it will win the war quicker. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt the war will end in a more glorious fashion for the Russian military. But the consequences of those actions are not being considered at all. And there are consequences. There are bad consequences if you start targeting civilians. First off, the propaganda aspect, you might get the U.S. re-involved if you start really messing it up. The U.S. is almost gone. I mean, almost gone. You know what I mean? They're distancing themselves because they know what's about to happen in Ukraine. If they were going to win, they would still be in there pumping weapons, doing everything they can. But they know they can't. They're just buying time. They're just trying to stall and do as much damage to Russia as possible. That's what all of these attacks are. Image damage, ego damage, strategic damage. That's what they're trying to do. It's all about overextending Russia. We wrote policy papers on it, people. The goal in Ukraine is not to win. The goal in Ukraine is to get Russia to waste so much energy, time, money, material that they can't be a threat to you in the future. That is failing because sanctions are failing. But the goal is still to overextend Russia, and that goal is not going away. All right. Thank you for your question. Woodrow Wilson, Secretary of Commerce, said that during the Great Depression, it's not accelerating, it's correcting the broken economy. Good luck. Good luck. You want to, it's like saying, oh, I know what'll fix your house. All I need to do is just take out the foundation. Yeah, it's rotten. It's a rotten foundation. But if you don't have the supports in place to keep the rest of the economy afloat, that is the economy. So yeah, go ahead, knock it all out. See what happens. That seems very accelerationist to me. That seems like you want things to get very bad very, very quickly. That's what that seems like to me. Let's see. What do you think the military objectives on the Oskal front and the Sumy front? Just in terms of like, I think that I've said this on the well, I just talked about the Sumy front. I think these are the objectives right here, this purple area, and I'll get rid of it so you guys can see that just down into these little villages right here, control this high ground and put a lot of pressure on Sumy. But I think the goal in the Oskal region is this entire northern Oskal region right here. So everything from the Oskal River to the Severodonetsk River on this side, this area is isolated geographically. And I think the Russians will have a much easier time pushing into this area than pushing into this area. Or pushing down even further. This is going to be a lot harder to push into for the Russians, just because you have Chernihiv right here, Kharkiv right here, Izum right here, Slavyansk. All this is very connected with railroads and everything. So pushing down this way is going to be more difficult. Pushing up through here and across the border will not. All right. If Ukraine fails, does the EU collapse? I've heard a lot about France being involved uniquely, and they're more independent than other EU states. No, not necessarily. Ukraine, they want Ukraine. Okay, so it depends on what you mean by collapse. If the war goes on for let's say 6 more years, and the Russians are very exhausted, and Ukraine is finally beaten at the end of it, but the Russians are just destroyed. Their economy is ruined, their population is decimated, then no, I don't think the EU will collapse. Unless there's some economics in the background where there's a massive onset depression or something like that. But I'm not going to predict that, because I think that before that happens, we're going to be in another war, and wars have a very handy way of erasing debt. It's like a magic tool. So, no, I don't think that the EU necessarily will collapse. Now, if the Russians are hyper successful and you have a massive wave of refugees into Europe, and the Europeans are taking on a massive burden all at once, you could see some titanic shifts. I don't know if you're going to see maybe the collapse of the EU as an organization, yes, but not a collapse of Europe. I don't think we're at that point yet. But they're not helping themselves with the deindustrialization and everything. Good questions today, guys. You guys are killing it. Usually it's dumb stuff, but at least the questions are opening up good tangents. All right. I think that's where I'm going to call it. I appreciate you guys being in here. This has been episode 154 of Calibrated with Scott. I am, of course, your host, Scott. I appreciate you guys being in here. I've been fishing a lot. I've been out of town and just fishing and enjoying fishing. So I've just been decompressing, and that's what I've been doing. So I'm sorry if my posting hasn't been as on the ball, or if my live streams aren't as frequent. I've just been sort of enjoying life, and that's been really nice. So I appreciate you all being in here. I appreciate all of your super chats, all of your questions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. I appreciate you all for the 60 millionth time being in here. I do this show because you guys are here. I wouldn't do it if you guys weren't here. So I really do appreciate that. And I've been coping. Tajan says I've been coping. I present very factual arguments. Scott is a loser. Oh, here we go. Finally, we didn't have one all show. Scott is a loser. You're lying. You've been coping. Bye-bye. Bless you, brother. Oh, this guy's nice. I thought it was the same guy, but it's different. Bye, loser. Bye. Here, look, I got this for you. I got that just for you. So, yeah, nice. All right, guys, take care. Thank you so much. I'm glad somebody started talking shit, because nobody's been talking shit to me for a while. I haven't seen Jimmy in here in a minute. All right, take care, everybody. Be safe. Have a great week, and I will probably see you later on this week. There's a lot of news happening, so I said that last time, though. Goodbye.